in English. I am a parishioner, and today I was asked to talk about stormwater management using green infrastructure. I've been a landscape architect for a long time, and have been working with stormwater management using green infrastructure for the past intensively of the last 12 to 13 years, but probably my entire career if I look back at it. So I want to share my slide with you and allow you to follow along. So hold on a second. I did something of minimizing. All right. All right, so God made the rain, but man made the stormwater. Kolya Braun Greiner of Interfaith Partners for the Chesapeake came up with this phrase, and I think it's really important because we love the rain, but we hate the impacts that rainwater rushing through our yard causes. And how is it then different than how the earth was created? Well, one of the changes is this, what we call an MS4 system. This is a pipe system that collects water in this little slot in the side of the road. You can see the inlet right here, where that comes down the driveway, goes into your inlet, and then it goes into a pipe. It doesn't go to a treatment plant, it goes straight into the stream. This is different than the combined sewer systems that you might have heard about, combined sewer overflows. This is a separate storm sewer system. And this is a regulated system under the Clean Water Act, and is the permits that you might hear about for the city of Rockville or any other place is really a discharge permit. How much pollution are we allowed to put into the waters of the United States? So stormwater runoff happens once water hits the ground and doesn't soak in. So rainwater goes over the top of the ground, off of roofs, driveways, roads, and sidewalks. It picks up everything that it encounters along the way, including chemicals from our lawns. Montgomery County has a new pesticide law, and some of the municipalities have accepted this as their law also, and others haven't. So you can check to see if you're in a jurisdiction that is following this pesticide law, or at least follow the practices on that county initiative. Chemical fertilizers actually contribute to climate change because of all the off-gassing and nutrients. So when we were a forest, this model shows a 10% runoff. So you see the 10%. Some models say it was only 4% in a forest setting, and that 40% of the water that fell from the sky would go back up into the atmosphere through trees. This is why trees are such a powerful tool for green infrastructure. They're big hydrologic pumps that take water from the ground and transfer it back up. Now, grasses and perennials and shrubs also do that, but the trees are our biggest actors. So you would have 25% in shallow infiltration, and this would contribute to what we call base flow in a stream. So the streams would stay cool and flowing all through the summer. And then you would have 25% deep infiltration, which would be our groundwater supply, and our aquifer replenishment, which allows the ground to stay stable, and then eventually might be drawn out for drinking water or other purposes. Once you start to develop, you start to increase your runoff. So here we have rural development of 10 to 20% impervious cover, and you still have pretty good evapotranspiration. You still have fairly good shallow infiltration, that subterranean flow, and it's still recharging the groundwater. And once you get to 35 to 50%, then you're starting to see a pretty 5% drop in evapotranspiration. You've lost a lot of trees, but you've gone from your runoff of 10% to 30%. That's a big increase. You don't have to be a math genius to know that. And you can see that 20% is going into the stream. So some of the smaller streams then that feed our bigger streams like Rock Creek are starting to dry out in the summer. When you get into the ultra urban environment, 75 to 100% of impervious cover, now you've got 55% runoff instead of, say, 10%. So you're getting big gushes of water, and those big gushes of water then are coming through that pipe system. When you have a healthy forest, this is down off Little Falls Parkway in Montgomery County, you might see a tree cover from the atmosphere, and you would see a layered system if you were looking at it from the side. So if you've gone hiking in the Shenandoah or someplace and you see these beautiful layered forests, not like our Rock Creek Stream Valley forest, which is eaten up by too many deer, which that mid layer is somewhat missing. But once you develop it, you think, oh, it's green and leafy. And now you've got streets, and this is the section of what it looks like down, I believe this is Somerset. So it's a very attractive neighborhood. Everybody wants to live here. And you've got the curbs, it's very neat, it's very tidy. But what are we doing? We are greatly increasing our runoff. It's not acting like this anymore. It's acting very differently in terms of water. So what happens with these rooftops and roads? 30 to 40% of total impervious area is just on rooftops alone. That's on private property. And 25% is in the roadway, right? So that's almost what, 75, 80% is on private property. So people wonder, why do I have to do something? Why isn't there, stream restoration? Why isn't that sufficient? I'm doing everything the way I was told to do it. And yet you're telling me I have to do more. And I'm telling you, that's right, you have to do more. Because these impervious surfaces are part of our problem. That water flowing off a roof in the summer can reach 140 degrees. Have you ever stood in a gutter when it's raining in bare feet when you were a kid? And it was hot when it first started raining and then it got cool? That's the temperature surge that hits our streams. And all those little bugs and little fish, they're very sensitive to temperature. That's why trout streams have to be cold, because the trout can't live in a hot stream. If you know this county, if you've lived in this county for a while, you might have heard stories. One of our wildlife biologists, he's an aquatic biologist actually, said that his grandfather could catch trout in Sligo Creek. Imagine that highly degraded stream that we've been working for decades to try to restore used to be clean enough for trout. What happens with this unchecked runoff, in addition to temperature, is you see that the trees start to get undercut on the bank. And then you have tree failure. So what? So what's the impact of it? So let's just go through the litany, shall we? Trash, soil and sediment, fecal bacteria, that's from all that pet waste, nitrogen and phosphorus, oil. If you have ever watched people dump stuff down the storm drain, whether it's grass clippings or they've just changed the oil in their car and that's not a trash can, but people think it is a trash can. Road salt is also causing impacts in some of our streams, and it's also contaminating groundwater. And then toxic metals, copper could be from downspouts, lead and zinc are typically from brake linings, and they get on the road. And these are things that then all get flushed away down into our streams. And they, just to give you the more visual graphic, this is what's in stormwater runoff. I was horrified when someone said, oh, it's so great. We live in a neighborhood with a stormwater pond and the kids go swimming in it. I said, do you have any idea what your kids are swimming in? It's not nice. Don't do it. Don't let them in there. It's not clean water. But in addition to all that volume, carrying all that other stuff, what happens to the stream banks themselves? So a stream bank is supposed to have a nice V-shaped profile. That's a healthy stream bank, because then as the water rises, it can spread out, and maybe it's got extra nutrition. The Egyptians knew that in the Nile every year. The Nile would flood. It was a fertile river valley, and our valleys then I've always gotten the extra nutrition, and those trees needed it. So now we're depriving the trees of that. One of the biggest pollutants into the bay, the thing that's clogging our filter feeders, is sediment. So I want to just draw your attention to this picture right here on the left. This is not how the stream used to be. The stream used to be up here. So all of this 8 feet is erosion, soil erosion from stormwater that's comes in there, blasts along the soft side, changes it from a V to a U in what we call an entrenched stream. It causes infrastructure like this sluice to get undercut, and this is just about to collapse. It causes our stream valley sanitary sewers, which is where all of our sanitary sewers, because they're gravity fed, were put into low points. And they were offset from the stream, say maybe 8 feet. Well, now the stream has moved over 8 feet and all that sediment load has been washed to the bay. And now we have exposed sanitary sewer pipes. So these pipes then will potentially act as dams, or they're vulnerable to a tree limb falling on them and breaking them. So for both ways, they're bad for stream health. And then the way it's bad for the taxpayer is that those pipes have to be repaired and covered. And this is borne through WSSC and the regional authority, but it's disruptive. So sometimes trees have to be removed for the pipe repair, plus the pipe repair, plus this whole stream profile adjustment. So it's armoring the stream, it's reconnecting the stream, but trying to bring back a stream that has eroded down 8 feet. You got a dam here across the road, so across the stream rather. So kids are like probably running across that thinking this is a lot of fun, but, and maybe some wildlife too, but the fish can't move. People are losing parts of their yard. People are alarmed. We get, you know, in my professional life, I get videos when it rains and people are like, I've never seen this before. And with climate change, we're going to see it a lot more. You know, people that, you know, responsibly pick up their pet waste and put it in a bag and then set it down beside the path, that's not responsible. That's what happens to it. It hangs up in the tree roots. Just all of this silt. One of our biggest contributors of suspended solids, which is silt, to the Chesapeake Bay pollution load from a county like ours is actually from our stream valleys, right from the stream itself, because this is being eroded and it moves downhill. So it's interesting. I had recorded that slide. So infrastructure was efficient. You go straight. Now we want it to meander. We want it to meander. So one of the things we did with the first projects at Christchurch, we focused on a small area in the front. But we focused on soil. I talked about soil because soil health is really, really important. Carbon is a great filter. And as we improve our soils, we will improve its ability to filter and treat that water. This erosion of inadequate buffers is really going to kill the bay, and that's just a metaphor almost for killing us. You know, we're slowly like suffocating underneath the silt that we're adding, the debris we're adding. There was a woman who called me at work last summer after a big rain. She had 2 windows in her house blow out because of flooding. So why should we care now? Stormwater is becoming an ever bigger source of pollution to the Chesapeake Bay. Ag runoff still contributes 40% of nitrogen and 50% of phosphorus. So there's still a big sector, but that also leaves 60% of somebody else is doing nitrogen contributions, and 50% of phosphorus is coming from somewhere else. And where that somewhere else is happens to be development. Among other things. And some of our important natural filters, according to the Chesapeake Bay Foundation, such as forest and oysters and underwater grasses, we've lost 98% of the oyster beds. And oysters are very sensitive to sediment. The pictures on the right are actually coming off of Norbeck Road. You know, these pipes are just dumping all kinds of stuff into the streams, and they just can't handle it. I mean, imagine trying to drink from a fire hose and not getting a break from that fire hose. I mean, even the first second would be damaging, but then it keeps up for hours. You know, it's amazing the streams have held up at all in any way. But in our particular region, climate change is causing more rainfall. Other places are going to be hotter and drier. The models show that we are going to be wetter and more intense, and these rain bombs that happened like last summer will become a more frequent occasion. So our design standards for, the pipes can handle maximum velocity capacity once every 10 years, those storms are coming much more frequently. And so there's less time for recovery between events. We armor the lower streams because of this gray funnel effect that we have had in development, the upper right. So this is how we used to do stormwater. We efficiently channeled it from the parking lot into a pipe into the storm drain. And EPA really pushed and is pushing for municipalities and individuals to go upland above where the low points are, and to treat that landscape as the green filter that originally was, and to restore that biological function. The picture on the bottom left is of Aspen Hill Library. This was a retrofit that Montgomery County's DEP installed off of Aspen Hill Road. This is in July, and it's got a 4-foot media bed. It's got under drain pipes. So it takes all the water from the storm drain in a trench drain, puts it in a pipe into this huge garden, and that garden fills up with water, and then it soaks through. So by the time it goes into the storm system, it's had a whole bunch of stuff cleaned out of it, and it's released more slowly because those plants are using that water, so there's less volume. It's a really great project. The old approach to stormwater management simply put it to the bottom of the hill and concentrates the water flow of pollution. The new way is the rain garden and the conservation landscape that is capturing water, even if it's not ponding water. It's roughening the surface. This is an example of a residential rain garden, and rain gardens always have this thing called a berm or a dam, but you can see how this designer has cleverly put a walking path along that berm. So it's all functional. Other organizations have taken it upon themselves to do things. This was a bat mitzvah project of a girl at the Hebrew Academy off of Arctic Avenue. That's in the Rock Creek watershed. And her Torah passage was on water. And she really took it to heart and led a project that had trees and conservation landscaping and a rain garden. St. James off of Seven Locks Road also has a rain garden right here. And they've inspired their neighbor to do a big project, which is a grant project, Beth Shalom. And the two together are reducing runoff into Cabin John Creek. Colesville Methodist has a demonstration rain garden outside their preschool, and they also have another project along Randolph Road. And they're using it to illustrate that they are living and walking the values that they're learning at their congregation. And then this is down on Connecticut Avenue. Grace Episcopal School has a big rain garden, which is capturing 5,000 square feet of roof runoff and filtering it before it goes down into, I think, Sligo Creek. Some of the fits you can do at home are simple. You flow down the slope and you've already got it planted, so you can build up these little boomerangs, little boomerang terraces. And again, you're just putting in speed bumps, making it harder for the water to rush, making it easier for it to pause and soak in. You're changing out invasive species. Like this was ivy, now it's all packrow, which is our native ground cover. And if you've been to the front of Christ Church Parish House, you see packrow in bloom this week. It's bright yellow, but in the winter, it's evergreen. And deer will not eat it. So if you're worried about deer consumption, that's one the deer don't eat. It will actually not sit well, and it could cause liver failure for them, so they won't eat it. This is a combination. Somebody took their front yard. If you've been following Doug Tallamy, that this was a rebate project somebody did with a conservation landscape that flows into a rain garden. 50% of the front yard now is a native landscape like this that is performing a stormwater function as well as a habitat function. Another example from the county, this one is also in Rock Creek. She started with the rain garden right here, and then she converted the rest of her property to conservation landscaping, showing that it doesn't have to be a lawn to be compatible with residential houses. This conservation landscape was another project. So this just shows you there's a variety of aesthetics, there's a variety of scales, but that people have been able to find places to at least manage some of their runoff, whether it's at home or at their congregation. And there are many ways to quantify the benefits. I've been focused on water, right? Stormwater and the quality, but you could also look at it as being nutrient neutral. So if you're trying to do better things for the climate, you might be saying, well, I'm not adding fertilizer. I'm not adding extra water. I'm not using potable water to water my garden. The rain is watering it. So I'm reducing my water use, which actually has an energy connection because potable water takes energy. Or maybe you look at it from a carbon neutral. You're not having to mow it. You're not having to, you're not having to use fertilizers that have a high carbon footprint. You're sequestering carbon because you're improving the soil tilth, and you're doing many things like tree plantings that are sequestering carbon. 40% of our carbon is terrestrial. That's where we have to put carbon. This is the easiest way to help reduce carbon and greenhouse gas effects is to sequester the carbon. And the easiest way is to enlist plants to help us do that. Another way you might look at it is environmental justice. This is certainly a topic that's getting a lot of attention these days, that people are not always able to live in a high quality environment. They don't always have access to a high quality environment. This congregant up in Harrisburg is there standing beside her newly planted rain garden, very happy, obviously. And then they're training people. So some people are learning green jobs on how to maintain this stuff. So it's a win-win for the environment. It's win-win for the people that live in the environment. And the thing that you have to remember is we're all in this together. It's not nature there and us here. We're all here together. So now I'm going to come back to Christ Church. I've kind of gone through that broad brush of what the issues are in our streams. So let's look at the campus of Christ Church. Where does the impervious runoff go? Right down here, right? And where is it coming from? And what's in that runoff? Why should we care what happens after it leaves the ground? I hope I've made some of the case. You know, have you looked lately though? Have you noticed that straight shot right down to that storm drain? Have you noticed that our exit drive actually drains right onto this parking lot? I did some measurements, which I'll get to in a minute. But I noticed yesterday when I went to look at it, the Mosquito Joe is spraying something. I don't know what Mosquito Joe is spraying, but I do know that whatever is spraying is going into the storm drain. I do know that that's probably not good for the fish and the benthic macroinvertebrates that the fish need, which are at the base of our food chain. I do know that this parking lot, which we don't own anymore, does go into that dry pond, which is right below this storm drain. I do know that what we've done so far is a little bit. So what's happening at the grounds? I went into Google Earth. The buildings are taking up about, on a really quick rough estimate, excluding the house on the east side of this, about 20,000 square feet. That's almost a half acre, because an acre is 43,356 square feet. The drives and the basketball court give us another 26,000, or we'll call it 27,000. And the total area in that square is a little over an acre, and 81% of it is impervious. So think back to the original slide that I showed about the impact of impervious. That means that this is an ultra urban site, and what are we going to do about it? That parking lot adds in almost another acre. I didn't even count the building. Just the parking lot is 32,615 square feet. Every time it rains, what happens? Every inch of rain contributes 28,415 gallons of water to that dry pond. That's just from the church property. That's not including the Jefferson Building property, and it's not including the houses that also contribute that are on the other side, on the south side. So back in 2014, I asked, what's the story we're trying to tell when people see our building? And you know, we had the welcoming committee, we had the choir, we had our worship, that was on our website. We had the adult forum, we had Bible study and Christian faith, and we claimed that we practice what we preach, a ministry of Christian nurture. And the nurture that was featured was fellowship through coffee hours, dine and deal, ushering, English conversation, feeding people, worship and outreach. There was nothing on the environment in 2014, absolutely nothing, even though it was the official year of the green sheep. St. Francis was held up as a patron of saint of ecology. There was a Franciscan Earth Corps. There was an awakening that was happening right around 2014 with projects to emphasize and care for the earth and the Franciscan ideals of simplicity and sustainability. In 2014, I posed the question, ever wonder what people see? And of course, what they saw was a do not enter, wrong way. They saw a degraded landscape. If they looked, most people were not looking. But I invited people to wonder if the outside package reflected our internal values. If it actually demonstrated that we believed that our faith was guiding what we practiced on our church property. And how did we present ourselves to the world? And what did we present on the outside to invite people in? So the adjectives, you know, people were not very happy when they saw this in 2014. It was uncomfortable. And there has been change. If you look lately, this was yesterday, this is what that parish house front looks like today. If you look around back, you see, you know, hate has no home here. Love. If you look along the side, you see native plants and food plants. But honestly, when I looked at it and I looked at some of the bigger pictures, even though it's progress and we have this outward sign of change, and there is outward sign of change. The youth came out, parishioners have come out. Change has happened, positive change for the environment. It creates a nicer experience when you walk by. There's a sign that goes through the columbarium that says, you know, handicapped entrance. It's clear. There's been effort made and it shows. So first the front of the house and then those side beds. And it's really been an opportunity for people to come together and be outside. And in this COVID time, it's actually maybe more urgent from that perspective as well. So what else has happened? I looked at the website, and the website says it's a very active community that enjoys fellowship with one another, committed to Christian education for children, youth, and adults, outreach and service, pastoral care. And then there's stewardship in the environment and God's creatures. Not quite as important because it's not highlighted, it's not hot linked, but it's there. You know, it's official because now there are committees. We're Episcopalian, so if there's a committee, it's official. There is a care of the environment committee, and there's a St. Francis Flock committee. It's official. There's been a handout that was led and coordinated through the care of the environment committee. And this is good. This is really good outward signs. The new statement on the webpage really focuses on being a vibrant and inclusive community that serves individuals and families, all ages and backgrounds. Every person that comes to us is a special gift of God, and we seek to honor you with the return of a gift of our hospitality. And I just want to lay on the table today, how hospitable are we to those things and creatures that are not people? So what's happening in Rock Creek? I looked at the study that was published in 2013 by the city of Rockville, since the church is in the city of Rockville. And there are about 2,500 acres or 30% of the city area that is in the Rock Creek watershed. The rest are in different watersheds. There are 6 miles of streams from Rock Creek that are in the city. 40% overall in the city limit proper, where the church is sitting, is considered 40% is considered impervious. And as I've already demonstrated, that the church site is 80% plus. And overall it's 35%. What was most startling is their statement that 64% of city runoff goes into the creek with no treatment at all. 36% of the runoff drains to a facility. So the runoff from the church does go to a facility, but it's in that typically older that provides little water quality benefit. So that pit in back of the basketball court and the church is really a flood control device. If the church was so inclined, if people were so motivated, they could try to lobby the city to do a retrofit of that facility as a bioretention. It could look like the Aspen Hill Library, maybe a little shadier. But what is the call that you have personally to restoration as it applies to the earth and the Christ Church community? Are you interested in environmental justice? Then you should be working on stormwater. Stewardship of the earth? Well, I don't think the building grounds really fully has maximized how you could help with our water. St. Camilla's, which is down in the Anacostia, and Silver Spring Methodist have both been successful in installing large cisterns which catch their roof water. And then that at least slows the volume. It reduces the volume that's coming off of the buildings. we need to be protecting existing infrastructure so that funding doesn't have to go to repairing that infrastructure, and funding can go to other programs that are important to people. Because of the slope nature of our parking, permeable pavers are a great concept for the Jefferson parking lot. But as we agreed, or I said, that property is no longer in our control. And most of our other parking spaces are on slope sites, which are more complicated. But there are a few spaces which could be a demonstration behind the parish house, where it's fairly level. There's a little terrace that we could look to do a permeable paver retrofit and capture a portion of the runoff and treat it rather than allow it to just rush into that stormwater facility. It may not be easy. Okay, so I did not turn off the sound on this, but basically it might not be easy to catch that water right where it falls. This is important. You want to catch that water before it picks up momentum and goes down the hill. And so what can managing stormwater with a green infrastructure approach do for Christchurch? It gives us an opportunity to be outside together. This is really important. We've been in a pandemic for over a year. We haven't been in worship services indoors. We need to do more things outside. It could help with that, creating a welcoming atmosphere. We've taken some really good steps right around the margins. We can demonstrate our environmental values. More people can participate, whether it's as families or as committees, but there are more opportunities. There are stream cleanups that parks sponsors. There are other things that people can do. And maybe it can help inspire your stewardship and re-examine how you are working to help heal the environment that we live in. And maybe there could be some creation of an outdoor place of worship. I know that the area above that storm drain facility, which is all wood chips right now, was mentioned as let's make it a pollinator garden, which is an awesome idea. But again, it's not catching the stormwater. You need both. Restoring streams to this condition takes many actions. It's expensive. Number one, the government has to pay for this through a whole series of taxpayer initiatives. So it's much better to go upland to your private property and try to do something at home. So what can you do for climate change at home and clean water? You could build a rain garden. You could look for ways to capture water and harvest it and use it for a different kind of garden. But basically, I've been thinking about climate change a lot, and it's kind of a then and there. It will get there. It's a crisis, but it doesn't seem real. It seems too abstract. The Rainscapes program or green infrastructure, it doesn't have to be in a program. It's really the here and now. What are the specific things that you can do that provide some immediate runoff reduction benefits as well as long-term environmental benefits? That's the difference. What can you do now? People feel powerless. This is a way to feel some power over your environment and be part of that bigger solution. Lady Bird Johnson, one of my very favorite quotes, is that she said, the environment is where we all meet and where we all have a mutual interest, and it's the one thing all of us share. It is not only a mirror of ourselves, but a focusing lens on what we can become. And so I invite you to think about what you can do at home, on the church grounds, how to build on what has been successful at Christ Church for stormwater runoff reduction. That's it.